Hi there, this is Brent.
And this is Amanda.
We are the Unreliable Narrators.
Here to talk about the strangeness, the mystery, and the wonder of Gene Wolfe's prose.
What is time?
What is memory?
What is a person?
Is this reality?
Where are we?
Do we exist?
Have you ever considered that all your choices were what brought you right here to this very moment?
Episode number 46, Bluesberry Jam. First published in Space Opera, which was edited by Anne McCaffrey and Elizabeth Ann Scarborough in 1996. And then it was later collected in Strange Travelers in 2000. In fact, it's the first story in the Strange Travelers collection.
Nice.
Yeah.
So listeners won't have to track down a obscure
I
anthology.
know. We do this to you. We're sorry, but we're also not. I mean, there is something quite fun, I think, about reading the less well-known things, the treading the less well-trod directions, paths. I mean, here we are, strange travelers. We're on a journey. And this is a great story to open up a collection called Strange Travelers. Basically, it's the story of a young blues singer or folk singer in the society that has arisen in the context of what seems to be at least decades-long traffic jam. And that's the basic story, right? Like, we have a folk singer, and he's living in a culture that exists in and among the vehicles of, seems to be a permanent traffic jam on a gigantic freeway.
Yeah.
So follows him from, he starts to go looking for his missing girlfriend, or going to look for he's going to look for a new song, because he understands that songs come to you. And the more you think about them, the less likely they are to happen. And as he is walking along, he encounters various aspects of this developed culture, sings various songs, encounters someone else who's aspiring to be a folk singer, but seems to be recently arrived in the traffic jam specifically to acquire the culture of the traffic jam, and then is whisked away, and our protagonist remains.
Yeah, I think that's a good synopsis.
Okay. I mean, there's not a lot of big plot movement, but there's a lot of micro plot movement, lots of little relational and cultural details here.
Do you have a particular way you want to go through?
Well, I mean, I have a very particular reason for wanting to talk about this story.
Oh,
so
okay.
I put this one on the schedule because I read it was in a private letter. Gene Wolfe said that he is just finished a story called Bluesberry Jam, certainly the best story I've written in a long, long time, and perhaps the best ever. So
Wow.
Wolfe's self-assessment was that this is one of his best.
Okay, and so he would have wrote this in the mid-90s, probably?
Yeah, the letter was from 1997.
Okay.
And he says it's just appeared in a book called Space Opera, so he probably wrote it in 96 or 97.
Okay. It's interesting.
Yeah, that self-assessment is interesting to me, because when I read it, I mean, I certainly think Wolfe is a gifted storyteller, and this is a very interesting and very unique story. It's not one that comes up in the context of, you've got to read. It's not like Seven American Nights or For Lesson or, Heroes, Werewolf. Or, it doesn't seem to come up like that. And so that just made me want to read it and talk about it. So I think my focus here is be to understand the story somewhat, but also it's quite a bit longer than some of the stories that we deal with. So I don't think that we can go through it page by page like we often do.
Yeah, that was part of my question, because you've already touched on this, where there's not a lot of movement.
Right.
With a giant traffic
We're in a traffic jam. Yeah.
So my notes are specifically around certain themes that reappear.
Well, what do you have up first?
Well, the first thing is there seems to be some sort of cargo cult.
Yes.
That's developed.
Yep.
So we have we have the slop chopper And
chow chopper.
Yeah, so the slop chopper, it drops used clothes.
Yeah, it's a helicopter that flies over the traffic jam, shoving out clothing.
Mm-hmm.
And the chow chopper is a helicopter that lands and hands out food.
And then there's the yellow chopper.
Yes, which is pretty clear from context is a news helicopter, which, large news markets, a helicopter goes up to, like, specifically one of the major things that the news chopper does is go up and observe traffic and report on traffic. So
Yeah.
the eye in the sky kind of thing.
The yellow chopper seems to be the one that Barry attributes his inspiration for songs.
Right. So he talks about the sun chopper giving him songs. And it seems, and the way he's talking about it seems to be a divine presence of some sort. At the very least, a heavenly muse, if not something more.
Yeah. So we have the cargo cult. There's seems to be just this lack of any desire for exploration.
Yeah, because we're on a traffic jam, and even the largest of freeways, you're not talking about a width of, what's the widest width of like a freeway possible?
I don't. There's some pretty large ones back east.
Okay, but we're still talking like hundreds of yards,
Yeah.
right? Not a kilometer across. Yeah.
So there's a guy that comes around with an air compressor.
To help with their tires.
Yeah. They're supposed to be rationing fuel.
Yep.
But people turn their vehicles on to charge their batteries so they can listen to the radio.
Yeah, and so you talked about a cargo cult. There's an aspect of this like belief system of people in the jam, whether or not the jam will ever, like whether or not it'll ever start moving again. And the airman who comes and reinflates tires, he and all of his class, because it seems like there are a number of them.
Yeah.
They talk like we're going to get moving one day. But there is definitely some disbelief within the jam community
Yeah.
that will happen.
Well, because like their vehicles are rusting out. Like some of
Right.
them are abandoned.
Yes. And abandoning a vehicle is viewed as a bad thing. Leaving the traffic jam is viewed as a bad thing, right? Like they try to prevent people from leaving.
Yeah.
But also there's resistance to, you said, exploration. There doesn't seem to be a desire for exploration. Aldo Barry, our protagonist, he goes back up the traffic jam. So he goes toward the back of it, back up traffic upstream. And there's definitely a threat of violence if you're not from around here. And from around here seems to be like a range of, again, hundreds of yards, not miles.
Yeah.
Even along the length of the traffic jam.
Yeah, and he goes to a spot where there's a police officer that's stuck.
Right.
And the police officer's he's got the, move along, or are you from around here?
Right. Like a small town cop kind of thing.
Yeah. Another thing, the freeway has become the metaphor for everything.
Yes.
So there's a section where our main character, Aldo, he's talking with a woman, and he believes he has memories from before they got to the traffic jam.
Right, because he says he was 3 years old when they got stuck.
Yeah, and he says, I remember a whole lane that was grass all over and soft.
Yes.
So the pavement or concrete has become the metaphor for the natural world.
Right.
And then he says that I remember running on it with some kind of animal that was white and brown. Woman asks, you mean a dog? And he's like, I don't know.
Right.
Later, he's got to make his way to a bus that's got a logo. The person tells him, it's a bus with the dog on it. So I'm assuming it's a Greyhound bus that's been trapped in traffic.
Right.
He knows what a dog is from the logo of a dog, but he doesn't.
Right, but not from the experience of having played with a dog when he was a child.
Yeah, so it's like.
Yeah, and it's when someone dies, the euphemism for death is drive out.
Yeah.
Right, so his mother has died, and she drove out a year ago.
Oh, yeah, and then they, for sanitary reasons, they send out the vehicles to pick up the bodies, and so
Right.
they're supposed to put them on.
Right, they're supposed to put them in a body bag and load them up to be taken away, but most people just put them in the trunk.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm making a shocked face.
Yeah.
I like, this sounds horrible, although there's a semi that gets some loaded in, but it's the ones that aren't in a body bag that cause the stink. Ugh.
Yeah, so it's this whole. It's so weird that the amount of expenditure they go to. It's like, oh, they're collecting the dead bodies, but they're not.
Right.
Yeah, you don't want dead bodies rotting, but at the same time, it's like the powers that be seem to be impotent to clear up the traffic jam.
Right.
I guess I started talking about our main character, but we have several. We have Aldo Barry. So Barry can have several meanings. It can be a place name or an occupational name, and that's attached to like a fort or a manor. Strangely enough, it could also be a Jewish name in English via Poland.
Okay.
So, and then like so it's kind of this mangled Hebrew word that's actually Judah.
Oh, okay.
Then the girlfriend.
Mar.
So Mar, which
has an apostrophe at the end in the spelling, so it seems like it's a shortened name of some sort.
I think it's Mary.
Right.
So Mary Dean. Mary, Hebrew, also possibly an Egyptian name. So Miriam, the sister of Moses and Aaron. It's obviously popular in English because of the Virgin Mary.
Right.
Dean, somebody who lived in a valley, or alternatively, it could be somebody who was a servant to a person who held an ecclesiastical office.
Right. Okay.
So Mary Dean is the girlfriend that Aldo is looking for, and she doesn't show up it's just his memories of her.
Yeah, he has memories of her. He misses her. He believes that she left looking for a chopper that would get her out, but he thinks she probably would die if she, like, you go looking for a way out, you're going to die.
And then we have two other named main characters.
Right.
I'm air quoting main here because they show up in like the second act. So we have a little girl. Her name is Beatrice.
Yes.
And so she shows up around the same time that the cop does.
Yes. And Beatrice is a very well-attested name. That's the woman that Dante loved and idealized.
Yeah.
And is eventually the one that gets him out of the dark wood. So.
Yeah. And name is Greek origin. Bringer of victory is. And then we have one other person who's our secondary folk singer.
Yeah.
So his name's Tim Benson. His first name is of Greek origin. It's a smashing together. It's Timotheos, like honoring God. Popular in English because St. Paul's traveling companion, that we have 2 letters from Paul to Timothy in the New Testament. And then Benson seems to be of English origin. It's the son of Ben, or variants of names starting with Ben.
Right.
There's also seems to be a influence from Hebrew because we get Benjamin, one of the 12 tribes. So
Yeah.
So there's our naming landscape,
yes,
so to speak.
Yeah. So Aldo Barry is a young man. He's been in the Jam since he was a very young child. From an early conversation, we find out that there are plenty of children who have been born in the Jam, born in the cars. He seems young enough that he could have been born there, but he says he wasn't. His mother, whom he calls ma'am, and it's spelled like, yes, ma'am. She was a woman that was generally respected there in the community of the Jam, and we later find out she was a country and western singer out in the wider world before she got stuck in the traffic jam. And she was at least famous enough that there was some kind of rescue operation staged to try and get her out of the traffic jam. And the people around threw rocks and gasoline at the chopper that tried to liberate her, and she had to stay. And she seems like she was willing to go, but also resigned to staying. And at least from Aldo's memories of her, she was a pillar of the civic community of the traffic jam, responsible and respected.
And then that just, You got the people in the jam not wanting people to get out.
Yeah.
Actively working to sabotage.
People getting out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody's been in some kind of like traffic jam or traffic holdup. You know, like that, the sense of unreality you have where you don't know why you're there. You don't know what it is up ahead. You know, you're far enough back. You can be stuck there for quite a long time. And it's very weird to be driving somewhere and then to not be moving. And there's this very weird thing where it takes quite a long time of sitting in a car before anybody like gets out of their car. And there's an anxiety about, do I get out of my car? Do I not? And then there's, you know, sort of a little pop-up friendly community that can happen where you laugh and talk with each other and news gets passed up and like, oh, is it construction? Was there an accident? What happened? And yeah, so.
Yeah, you mentioned that. You just brought back all sorts of memories where we were somewhere outside of Winnemucca or Lovelock.
Okay.
And I was very young when this happened, and there was an accident, and we were out on the desert highway. I don't know if anybody's drove through there, but
Johnny Cash sings about it. So It is not an easy place to be.
Yeah. There was miles of
backed up traffic.
And there's an old man that was walking up and down giving people the information that, hey, there's an accident. They're saying it could be quite a while.
Yeah.
And he'd been back and forth several times.
Right.
Since we were sitting there, mostly just this was back before most vehicles had ACs and.
Right. And then if you are going to be stuck for a long time, you don't want to have your car running. Even if you want the coolness of your AC, or even if you want to listen to the radio or whatever, you don't want to risk running out of gasoline, especially outside of Winnemucca. Like you might be quite a ways from a gas station. So, you know, I'm from Idaho. The only kind of traffic jam I've ever been in is a road construction or accident kind, right? On like a mountain highway or something where it's one lane going each way, and when it starts to back up, like it can back up for miles, and you might be stuck for a while and not know why, because whatever it is happened, you know, miles ahead. But there's not, you know, there's no cell service, very often no radio reception. Yeah, it is. You're relying on that folk communication of passing the information up the line.
Yeah.
Also why I tend to make sure that my gas tank is full, even if I don't think I'm going that far. And I pretty much always have food and water in my vehicle and warm clothes if it's wintertime, and certain number of tools. So.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's really striking to me about the story, and this connects to my reason for wanting to discuss it in the first place, is that Wolfe has, with great economy, communicated a very complex culture in a very strange setting. I don't know if you could come up with a more alien concept than a traffic jam that has gone on so long that decades have passed and an entire folk culture has arisen within the car. Like, that is such it's so absurd and so alien. It is science fiction, but it also ends up feeling very plausible because of these very things we've been talking about. We've all been stuck in traffic. We've all been stuck in traffic long enough that we wondered if we were going to get out, or wondered when we were going to get out, and had to do some kind of dealing with, you know, somebody has to go to the bathroom. Do we have food and water? Like, are we equipped for this situation? So that's a very resonant experience. And yet Wolfe takes it to such an extreme and uses these, you know, defamiliarization, and he uses invented terms for things that are based on real objects and connects, like, your basic anthropological concepts all are appearing here.
Yeah.
In the way that, you know, Fifth Head of Cerberus, sure, it's about an alien civilization and shape-shifting aliens, but it's also a remarkable commentary on post-colonial understandings of the master-slave relationship, and an incredibly insightful commentary on how the dominated become like the dominators and the dominators become like the dominated. And here it's, okay, well, the isolation that happens in certain contexts where because of disaster or because of steepness of terrain, you can have an isolated pocket of culture that has its own dialect and its own, all of its own reference and context, or the way that a belief can develop around a gap in knowledge.
Yeah.
It's just very, very richly realized here. So, and maybe this is partly because I'm reading James Scott's The Art of Not Being Governed, which talks about the hill tribes, and tribes isn't even an accurate word, and he would yell at me for using it, but the little communities in upland Southeast Asia where you have like stratifications of culture in different places out of reach of the various states that compete for power. Mm-hmm. And he draws a parallel to Appalachia in the U.S. and how, you can have people in one holler that are within 10 miles as the crow flies from another community, but if like a girl marries outside of her community and goes and lives in a different holler than the one she grew up in, she may never see her family again, even though they're only 10 miles apart. They're not actually close.
Yeah.
So here we are on the freeway having whole cultures develop.
Yeah. And you were talking about how, like, the strangeness of, because we have the instruments here.
Yes.
And as far as I can tell, Barry's got something like a guitar, but it seems to be made from a hubcap.
Yeah, and hubcap, and then like the strings are cabling from the vehicle.
Yeah, so I assume like some brake
Yes.
or something. And then and Tim, he has an instrument, which also, it's some sort of stringed instrument.
Made from a muffler.
So they're
Yes.
like it's scavenged
materials.
Yeah, repurposing of things.
Yeah. Well, again, this is a direct evocation of the ways that a community that becomes isolated can use the detritus of their previous contact with civilization and repurpose it in some ways, or just the ways that a community can make one thing work for many different purposes without, I'm thinking about, I already mentioned Appalachia, but playing spoons, not something you would think of in the context of we have all kinds of musical instruments, just go down to the local music store and buy musical instruments. Mm-hmm. No, we don't have much. So how do you make music?
Yeah, or saw. I'm not a musician, and I always had kind of was like, playing the saw, but then for a little while, I worked with somebody who played the saw, and it's actually fairly complicated because you're getting different gauges of metal and the way you bend it, and it's like, okay, well, this makes sense because if you have people who are up in the mountains, and
you learn the qualities of the materials that you have, right? Like you can't just play spoons with just any spoons, and a different saw is going to sound, and they can be incredibly sophisticated tonally and musically. But it's definitely like very specific context where this is what you have available to you, and so where does the human soul and the creativity come out?
Yeah.
And for Aldo, it's his hubcap guitar thing, banjo thing. I don't know, like we're paralleling to guitar and banjo because of an American cultural context, but like stringed instruments are such a human universal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
So one thing you said was like the economy of a weird foreign culture in this story.
Yes.
And there was one other book that I've read that somewhat reminded me of this one, but it's Concrete Island by
I'm not familiar with that.
Ballard.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And it's about a guy who gets in a wreck on the freeway, but he ends up, because he goes off the freeway and he lands up out in not even really a median, but kind of just an area that's
right.
He's injured, but he's not dead. But there's like a transient community out there. And I was
under an overpass kind of thing.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that because because Ballard is very big on using negative spaces to create that sense of distance or like familiar, unfamiliar, like divide. but he has somebody coming from the freeway to this like no man's land,
Right.
and Wolfe takes the whole thing,
Yeah.
and makes it the no man's land.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the music. You said you're not a musician. I am also not a musician. I find that I tend to enjoy most music when someone's introduced it to me or when there's a particular context for it, but it's not something I spend a lot of my life. Like, I don't seek out songs or artists, or like I don't go to concerts or that sort of thing. I mean, I have gone to the symphony orchestra, our local philharmonic, for years. My ex-husband and I went, and it was a really great experience, but I took an intro to music class when I was in college because I needed, art credits.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not an enthusiast for a particular style of music. I just feel like there's great music in a lot of different places, and there are a lot of things that will resonate at different times.
Yeah.
And I was watching a show the other day, and the Nine Inch Nails song "Hurt" was on, which I first discovered from Johnny Cash, his cover of it. And so it's like, I don't listen to Nine Inch Nails, but that song is incredibly powerful, and I love it. And it's so moving and meaningful. So I looked up some of these songs. So what Wolfe does here is really interesting. So Aldo Berry, he's grown up in the Jam, and he has learned a lot of songs. People have radios, but he's playing music and singing music and learning songs. And his mother was a musician. And then also songs come to him. So he writes his own original songs or writes new verses for existing songs, which is something that happens with folk music.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had all of that long intro about music because I'm not super familiar with folk music. And so he's playing what seem to be Jam culture originals, where Tim Benson, who we meet about halfway through the story, who also has an instrument he's made out of a muffler, but he's very much new in the Jam. And so Aldo, as our point of view character, doesn't really question his newness or comment on it, but it seems pretty obvious that Tim Benson is some privileged suburban kid who's slumming it in the Jam in order to pick up some culture, because what he wants to be is a folk singer, but he didn't grow up in a folk culture, so he's going to come and acquire it.
Yeah.
And Benson has learned folk music from our American culture. And Barry is enamored with the songs and struck by how lyrically beautiful they are. Of course, a couple of them are old Irish folk songs, and I don't know if there's anybody who thinks they can compete with the Irish for folk music, but I'm pretty sure they're well regarded as being, ahead of the game, let's say. I don't know. And a couple of them are collected by Thomas Moore, who put together a book of Irish folk songs, and these are ones that Benson has learned and is singing. And Barry is very impressed by, but what Benson wants is Barry's original music. To then, and then he gets taken out, Benson gets taken out of the Jam by the TV chopper, that is come looking for a folk musician to introduce to the world, like something to consume.
Boy, that's okay. So I feel like I don't know a lot about music either. So I preface all this, like, we have a mutual friend. He's a jazz musician who I was college roommates with, and so he introduced me to a lot of stuff. And in the intervening years, I have, gone and it's like, oh, who's Lightning Hopkins? Who's Jelly Roll Morton? Started listening to various other kind of, I don't know what outside of the top pop charts.
Okay, he's saying Brent is telling you here that, he doesn't consider himself an expert and he listens to things outside of the top charts. However, this is also the same Brent who at one workplace made it his personal goal to make sure he quoted a Taylor Swift lyric in every staff meeting. Is this an accurate narration?
It is. I
Okay.
feel like Taylor
So
Swift's not on the same level as. Like,
So he also is somewhat familiar with some popular things. And if he ever shares a Spotify playlist with you, it might be like 6 or 7 days in length.
I don't know what I mean when I say I'm not into music. What I mean is I'm not into music the same way that people are going around. And it's like, music's my personality. And it's like, oh, I don't, what do you mean?
Well, and I feel like you know a lot more musicians and songs than I do. But I think that we're both saying something similar. It's like, I find myself moved by music and interested in music, but I don't feel like I know or understand it. So like when our mutual friend that he mentioned will talk about music, he can tell you exactly what's happening that evokes these feelings. He can tell you exactly what needs to change for this to work, for this song to work in this different mode, and has a kind of technical knowledge. Plays an instrument and professionally and knows what he's doing. And I've, like you say, music, you're not doing the music is my personality thing. And I think the thing that's really important to me is that I'm not going to play the gatekeeping game if somebody is like, well, but do you know this? I probably don't. I know what I've learned and what I've been exposed to, and I'm not positioning myself as some kind of expert. I know that these things move me, and I am delighted by them, but yeah. So anyway, back to your point.
So partially this kind of feels almost like a commentary. Well, let me ask you a question before I go on. Do we have any indication of like what racial background Barry is?
No.
Okay. Other than a name that could mean many different. Okay. There's a bit of, because it's like with this blues background.
Yes.
There's a huge African American presence in there, like Black American presence, where a lot of those came out of. I mean, you have like the Negro spirituals, you have the slave songs, you have like you're working on the jail line. Like prison or like work release type songs.
Right. Yep.
And then you have like the actual church choir songs, but then you also have a bunch of other stuff that it gets blended and melded in, and
all of which is informed by traditional African music roots that were subsumed into the traditions very early on and come out. Yeah.
And I can't think of a particular artist off the top of my head, but there's definitely you have like the musicians who grew up in that and they're singing it. And then like you'll get somebody that comes in, and I don't know if anybody would even know what the term blue-eyed soul would mean today, and I don't even know if it was derogatory back then, but it was it was white musicians who very much liked the black.
So this is a long way around for you to say that Tim Benson is to Aldo Berry as Eminem is to rap music, as Elvis Presley is to. No,
I don't. Maybe I think there is.
Which I say with great respect, Eminem. You are actually very. I'm no expert, but you're incredible from everything I've read.
But there is a little bit of that where there's like because he comes to the traffic jam.
Yeah. This is cultural appropriation kind of thing, right? Where it's like, oh, look, that authenticity looks marketable. And so I'm going to acquire enough of it that I can market it.
Yeah.
I think that's very clear that that's what Benson is doing, and that Barry is unaware that that's what Benson is doing and doesn't care.
Yeah.
That like Barry's life is, he is invested in the things he's invested in. Like he wants to receive a new song, and he gets one right at the end. After Benson takes his song and gets his big break, Barry gets a new song.
Yeah. And
it has a rich, angry folk, theme of seeking justice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you were talking about, the the African American music, and is there a racial context here? I think Aldo Berry's name is ambiguous enough that we could read it that way. I also think of, country western music, and in the 90s, there was certainly a lot of talk about these country western stars that had never sat on a horse in their life and really had never worked a day in their life. You got $2,000 cowboy boots on. That's not my country. And there is a folk tradition in country music that relies very much on close cultural context with what it means to work the land, what it means to work with animals, what it means to deal with the hardships of farming and ranching life.
Yeah.
Versus I say something that makes me seem folksy while I fly around the world in my jet and wear, fancy alligator skin cowboy boots.
Yeah. It's kind of like how Chris Ledoux didn't become popular until... Not George Strait. Garth Brooks wrote about the worn out tape of Chris Ledoux.
Yeah.
In his.
Yeah.
Now I say that, and part of me is like, well, I feel like Garth Brooks is probably more authentically country than.
Right, but I think Garth Brooks was big in the 90s, right? And George Strait was big in the 90s, and I can't think of Brooks and Dunn, right?
Yeah.
And I can't think of other names right now. Sorry, I was not prepared for this.
Yeah, neither was I. I'm kind of shooting from
country western stars, but there was definitely like a moment there where country stars were filling arenas, and it didn't have much to do with the background of country western music. And I mean, certainly Johnny Cash did his share of country western music, and you get Waylon Jennings, and you go back, and there's a name I'm trying to think of, and I can't think of right now. There was
Christopherson.
Oh yeah, Chris Christopherson.
Willie
but there's
Nelson.
also a father-son, somebody junior. I can't think of who it was, but anyway.
Hank Williams Jr.?
Yeah. Hank Williams, and then Hank Williams versus Hank Williams Jr. kind of thing. And my grandpa had very, very strong opinions on this, and the record collection to back it up. But as, blue collar working man, I think, that sense of this guy at least had contact with blue collar working class culture versus not. And I think that's one of the things that Wolfe is deliberately playing with here. Whether or not there's a racial dimension to it, there's certainly a class and culture dimension to it. And at that point, I think that the racial component almost doesn't matter, because when it comes to the racial component, it's not about whether or not your skin is darker or lighter. It's about whether or not you know the culture and respect the culture and are part of the culture.
Yeah, in America, because of the history of slavery, it gets shoved into racial division lines. But like if you're from somewhere else, that may not be obvious, but then also like it becomes the only thing we can talk about. We can't talk about class differences. And it's like, well, there's all sorts of ways that it gets.
Well, and then they get weaponized against one another, because it's like, well, it's not really about race, it's about class. It's like, well, no, it's about race and it's about class.
Yeah.
Or to say that, this is a cultural thing does not do anything to change the fact that we live in a culture shaped by profoundly racist division. So, yeah.
There's was it Bo Burnham? He's got a...
I hope so, because I love me some Bo Burnham.
He's got a song.
Ask me sometime about the time I tried to show a clip from Bo Burnham in class and realized I wildly... I had forgotten the number of words he used. I'm a grown woman. I don't care. But 16-year-olds probably don't need to hear that.
He's got a song about, I think he calls it stadium country. If you do search for him. And
I have seen this.
Yeah, and it's about pretending about...
Yeah, and how it's like, my charm is going to cover up these rapey vibes. Yes.
So
yeah.
It gets a little of that. So at the yellow chopper at the end where you're talking about where they get out.
Yes.
So there's one other thing I'm realizing that I kind of want to talk about, but we haven't. So I'm going to sidebar for a second, because they talk about the spaghetti.
Oh, yes, the spaghetti bowl.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as the story goes on, we realize that it's overpasses.
Right, it's some kind of interchange with overpasses.
Mm-hmm.
And the traffic jam is all backed up along it.
Yeah. So Barry views that as an affront because it's like the cars are up in the air.
Right.
And it's like the jam goes up in the sky.
And that's where the choppers are. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's like this mythic quality. So he goes and looks at that. So when they come to get him, well, they land, and one of the things they're talking about is we can get you out of here and we can get you food, but then it says in compliance with our agreement with the Department of Transportation, we have to bring you back here when your engagement is finished.
Right.
It's like, meanwhile, and it may be for quite a while, you'll be treated royally. You'll have Consort Hilton's wonderful hotel. You'll get new clothes, wonderful meals. You'll earn a great deal of money, too. Be able to buy things to take back with you for yourself and your friends. So there's this weird, it's like the Department of Transportation is like, this is our jurisdiction.
Well, and they don't want people to leave their cars because then you can't break up the traffic jam because there's nobody to drive the cars out. Mm-hmm. Now, we're decades into this.
Decades into it.
But the policy is you can't abandon your cars.
But then the yellow chopper, the news chopper, essentially, is kind of like a lottery type system.
Right.
Because they're dropping in
to get somebody that is interesting.
Mm-hmm. And to take out, for fame and notoriety, but they're not interested in fixing the jam.
Right.
But they are more than willing to take the music that comes from the anguish of the jam.
Which is a meta commentary on American culture and also why everyone loves Dolly Parton. Right? Because she comes out of Appalachia. Mm-hmm. She comes out of a culture that creates these pressures. She's an incredibly talented individual, so not going to say that the culture made her, but her talent and her culture, she knew what to do, and she had the capacity to do it. And America as a whole loved to consume Dolly Parton as a product.
Yeah.
But what Dolly Parton chose to do was she had the capacity to recognize, yep, this is what you want and this is what I'm selling, but who I am is not the product. And so she, my understanding is when she's at home, she doesn't wear the makeup, she doesn't wear the clothes, people don't recognize her. So she doesn't look like Dolly Parton, so she can just live her ordinary life. Mm-hmm. She talked in an interview one time about them putting up a statue of her in her hometown, like a bronze statue. And she was telling her dad about it and isn't that kind of cool? And he's like, yeah, but never forget, it's Pigeon's toilet. And she's like, yes, I have to be that was her reminder, even as she's receiving this public recognition. But then she invests her money in her community. Mm-hmm. She gives away hundreds of thousands of books a year to children in need. Literally, you can just sign up and her organization sends books to children. So it's like this lottery system to come in, fly in, and pluck the interesting and talented person out of the impoverished situation. And the impoverished situation is what creates that talented person.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is going to be a little topical, but, I recently read a book called Nothing is True and Everything is Possible by Peter Pomerantsev.
Yeah.
And it's about post-Soviet Russian culture. Explains a lot about how things function. One of the things he spent some time on is the system that exists to identify beautiful women and extract them from their context and then consumes their lives as quote unquote models, but also as escorts, as call girls, as the face for a product, and literally feeds these girls into systems like one that may be very the Epstein files. Like
Yeah.
these young women are fed to modeling agencies, and modeling agencies then feed them out to all kinds of things, including the most brutally exploitative things that we can imagine or can't imagine. So this idea that it's like, okay, well, she thinks it's a good idea because she lives someplace where there's no opportunity.
Yeah.
She thinks it's a good idea because she might be able to send some money back and help her family. But you wouldn't think it was a good idea if you had normal, healthy options in life. So a beautiful woman in rural Russia wouldn't sign on to your, like, you know, the beautiful women go that way, and yes, they send money back, but they kind of disappear, or they come back addicted to drugs or whatever.
Yeah.
Nobody would sign up for that if the normal options were, you know, oh, look, here's 12 years of excellent public education, and here's another 4 years of excellent university education, and here are many decent paying jobs, and your family's financially stable, and your siblings all survive child. Like, it's just... So the news chopper, like, they come in and they end up taking somebody who just arrived in the jam and stole some songs, although Barry doesn't feel like the songs have been stolen from him. He's like, no, you can sing my songs. I don't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're happy to have that exist because it's creating this consumable product that they want. Sorry, this is a really, like, doom and gloom social commentary.
Well, they're in a giant traffic jam.
I
and
know.
And the Department of Transportation's keeping them there. And their only metaphor for, like, what a meadow is it's
a
like,
lane of
is
grass.
a lane of grass. And
I know. And then it just makes me want to go on an entirely separate rant. I say entirely separate. It's all connected. But another rant about, you know, just the brutality of the automobile and structuring an entire society around the automobile. And instead of having automobiles be an option, automobiles are the only option. And so therefore we have these, you know, 13-lane freeways and traffic jams. And you see I don't know, we were just grumping about people from Texas last episode, moving to our state. But, like, seriously, if you've ever... the two states that send the most people to Idaho are Texas and California. And if you've ever been to California, it's like, oh, no, it totally makes sense because I think we have sprawling subdivisions. Not compared to that. I think we have a lot of traffic and a lot of roads. Not compared to that. You would want to get away from that.
Yeah.
I just wish, you know, if you got away from that, you'd try to make someplace fundamentally different from that, not just that divided by 7 or whatever it is.
Yeah. Some of those complaints come from people who've lived in an area for a long time and watching it grow in ways that we don't have the infrastructure here for all of the new people that have moved in. Yeah. And the amount of time it takes to build that.
Spin that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one thing you said there that was I was kind of thinking about is, like, the whole perspective of the American car culture, how strange it must look to, well, I mean, even our family members 100 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
My vehicle has gadgets on it that a king wouldn't have been able to afford.
No.
But we've built an entire society around it that doesn't, like, why do I need...
You don't.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a culture that would be unrecognizable to your great grandparents, for sure, and to any indigenous culture, you know, that is isolated from it. It would look strange. It is strange. It's one of those things that you just do because it's what's been presented to you, and we would have to all collectively get up and decide to change it. But if we all collectively decided, okay, this is enough, no more, let's make our lives more livable and could actually agree on what to do, we wouldn't be beholden to the pavement, the lanes, the traffic jams, but you look at a city like Florence, which is obviously like a big example, but there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of towns and cities like this in old world communities where it's not structured around a car. Cars can access or come close to accessing most things, but it's not built for that. And And then it feels so alive and warm and real and interesting and like you want to be there. And like to walk from your apartment to the cathedral to the shops to your work or whatever, like it just feels cohesive and whole and alive in a way that most of my coworkers drive at least an hour to get to work.
Yeah.
And work already takes up 9 hours of the day, with like 8 hours of work plus an hour for lunch. And then you add an hour to the beginning and the end of that. Like, how do you have a life?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you hit on a good point there. Because I briefly moved out to a outlying area in our area, and I realized that I had added at a minimum 10 hours of commute time to my
work week.
Work week.
Yep.
And most of the time it was closer to 15, and I was like, okay, this is horrible.
Yeah.
We could be getting maybe the narrator's perspective here is somebody who's not from a car culture. Maybe this is just a average afternoon drive home, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is the way they're narrating it." So
yeah.
Because I think about where we're at, the Native American tribes, they used dogs. They had like these little sleds that like an individual dog would pull an individual sled, and it had like a little pack on it,
like a travois type sled with. Yeah, sticks.
Yeah, with sticks. And so they would go around, and their dog, they'd have 5-10 dogs. Like if they could see a window in like 100 years, 120, and then it's like the window of like, are they even going to have any concept of what's going on? It's like,
no.
what did they do?
And the thing that drives me a little bit crazy is that I hate it, and most people I know hate it, and yet we're somehow not willing to make the kinds of collective decisions, or not willing or not capable of making the kinds of decisions that would fundamentally change it. Because our city is structured in such a way that a handful of people can live a mostly walkable life. But the vast majority of people, you just can't live here and live a walkable life.
Yeah.
Because it's not, you mentioned infrastructure earlier, and design being the main aspect of that. Like it is not designed for a life that's primarily walking or biking. It's the way our community is designed is you drive. And literally 20 years ago, right? Or we'll go further back, 30 years ago, the population of the state was half of what it is now. And a driving life was mostly reasonable. Most people, you could drive for 10 minutes and do everything you wanted to do. And if you wanted to go to the next town over, it was 25 minutes of driving, and you might do that once in a while, but there just wasn't, it didn't feel so onerous, but designed for that. And this is what we end up with.
Yeah.
A traffic jam that's apparently tens of miles long and stuck for years.
Yeah. So on that, they're on the freeway. It's interesting here in this world, because a freeway started out, the whole idea was there'd be no toll booths on it.
Right, because it's free.
Yeah. And then there was free flowing.
Yes.
And so all the interchanges and intersections, that aspect of the infrastructure was moved like on ramps and overpasses and those types of things. So you have this whole system that was designed like free, certainly not the way that the people in the story are feeling not free, but it's like this free way, like, and then you get a complete failure of that system.
Yes.
And then that's where, and you mentioned, so when Tim goes and he goes to sing his songs and with the yellow chopper.
Yes.
That's when Barry gets his new inspiration, his new song.
Yeah.
And it's around what freedom actually should be.
Yes.
Or could be.
Right. Do you mind if I just read the two verses that he composes? So here's in the narrative. Half a minute more, and he was up again with his Chevy cap in his hand, and his hair streaming, his Chevy cap singing of wind and rain and lightning and of a fury that had scarcely begun. Big storm arisen, arisen, arisen. Big storm arisen, the rising of the free. Clear to the horizon, the horizon, the horizon. We're the free wares and will be free. Blood on the roadway, blood on the wall, blood on our irons, our knives and all. Waiting since the jam began, supposed to be a day, supposed to be a month, a year. Someone's got to pay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you have all these people. Yeah, because it's interesting, this whole infrastructure that's supposed to be about, like, on the surface, it's like, oh, you know, if you want to go vacation, if you want to move.
This is supposed to be about being able to be an individual.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
Let's ignore for a second Eisenhower developed the interstate freeway for military purposes, but you should be able to get around. But it's become it's a snare that's now entrapped all these people to the point that you have people that don't even remember like what life was like because they were born in the traffic jam,
right? And we were born, right? We were born into this culture. You sent me a video one time about a guy who lives like genuinely off grid. Right? Like there are lots of people on YouTube that record quote unquote content about off gridness. This was a guy that was being interviewed by someone else. So he doesn't live his life on a YouTube channel. And he said something that stuck with me ever since. People always want to know what you give up to live like this, but they never talk about what you get.
Yeah.
And he went on to talk about how this particular wild herb tastes and what fresh berries plucked off the vine taste like and what his morning feels like as he wakes up alone without any interference and without any obligation other than to just take care of himself. And I think about that. Like people talk about what you give up. Well, you wouldn't be able to whatever. Yeah, but you know, I could, instead of that 10 hours you were talking about losing to commute, it's like, I think I actually get up at the same time as some of my coworkers who get up, make coffee, take a shower, get dressed, get in the car and go to work. And because I am so lucky to live close to where I work, I can get up and make a cup of coffee and read a chapter and sit on my front porch and feed my chickens and water my raspberries and then, you know, go and get ready and then like, oh, it's still too early to leave for work. I'm gonna show up early. I don't want to show up early. And I'm talking about that's a very limited change of different. I'm not talking about like a truly free life. I'm talking about like I have a little more freedom.
Yeah.
And then somebody who lives, you know, an hour commute away.
So then what do you think the motivation in the story for not clearing up the jam is? Do you think there's any indications in there? Or?
Oh, that's interesting. The transportation department, I don't think I thought of it as motivation. I thought of it as just that sort of institutional inertia.
Okay.
Like it's, you know, it's the cat in the hat problem. It's the mess is so big and so deep and so tall. We'll never get it, clean it up at all. I don't remember how that goes, but it's just like there comes a point where the problem, and here I would say, I'm not sure this is Wolfe's explicit intention, but the idea that our dependence on the personal automobile is so profound and that it is so complicated that it doesn't matter if you're highly motivated or not. There's just no place to start.
Yeah.
It's such a mess. And
there's one little quote here that I wasn't able to work in anywhere else.
All right.
I'll throw this in.
Let's hear it before we wrap up.
So this is from an interview with Michael Dierda in 1983. So this is from the Washington Post. Surprisingly, the now pervasive religious theme developed later in the book's 7 years writing. Sometimes you start with a small idea and it grows, remembers Wolfe. I put religion into the Book of the New Sun because I tried to put in just about everything I thought important to human life. You know the story about how Tolstoy, the night after he sent the manuscript of War and Peace to his publisher, he was supposed to sat up in bed, slapped himself on the forehead and said, My God, I forgot to put in the yacht race.
Yep.
I don't have a yacht race in the Book of the New Sun, but I tried to talk about children, war, love and death, God, heaven and hell, and all these things that are really pivotal to the human condition. I would like to have put in a lot more that I couldn't manage. Music, for instance.
Yeah.
So I thought I was going to use the quote to kind of jump off into some...
I mean, that would have been a great place to jump off into our discussion of the story. I mean, we got there.
Yeah.
Or certainly, I mean, it's central to the story. Yeah, you could call this a chance for Wolfe to explore the importance of music, significance of music for the culture. I mean, I feel like I could either talk for another hour or probably need to cut it off, because I do think this is a great short story. Really interesting. I feel like we've scratched the surface with it.
Yeah.
You know, Wolfe he really cares about people and culture and the knock-on effects of things and unintended consequences. And he's so uncategorizable when it comes to philosophy and political alignment. And I think that, you know, if you were going to analyze him as a social political thinker, you'd have to put Fifth Head of Cerberus and this together on a continuum somewhere. Mm-hmm. So
I don't have anything else other than, you know, if you haven't read it in a while, go check it out, because
definitely.
I'm not even sure if the way we sliced and diced the themes would necessarily be the way another reader would.
Yeah, or us at another time. I feel like this is one we could revisit for sure.
Yeah.
Well, until then, the Unreliable Narrators are Amanda Patchen and Brent Tell. And as Gene Wolfe said, there is no limit to stupidity. Space itself is said to be bounded by its own curvature, but stupidity continues beyond infinity.